The one thing that having exposure in general, Vince, most people, and they don't think like this, people who are selling, even if they're individual sellers, they really need to be in the public square. The more they're in the public square, the more they will sell, because people look you up, folks. No matter who you are, they look you up. There's all kinds of ways to find information on people today.
Welcome into Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast. I'm Vince Quinn, and today we're talking about the revenue growth mindset. And joining us for that conversation is Doug C. Brown. Now, Doug is a sales expert with over 4 decades of experience. He's dedicated to helping businesses grow their revenue reliably and measurably. And as the CEO of CEO Sales Strategies and the creator of the Double Your Sales methodology, Doug has a proven track record, including boosting sales close rates by 143% and increasing product sales by a paltry 4,150% in 6 months. So, wow, quite a number. Doug, happy to have you on the show. Welcome to Future Fuzz.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. I love the name of your podcast, by the way. Love it.
Right? It's just such a good energy. I always think of, you ever see the movie Get Him to the Greek? There's a part of that movie where they have a fuzzy wall and they're just, everybody's like loving this big fuzzy wall that they can rub. And it's like a transcendent experience. That's what I want this show to be. That's the goal.
Well, I'll do my best to live up to that expectation.
Your energy's right for it, Doug. I can feel it. Like we're on that par. So I think we're going to be just fine.
Okay.
Great. So getting into, first off, just right off the top, what is CEO Sales Strategies, Doug? Just give us a little bit of background about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, essentially, we're a consultancy company that specializes in really predictable growth, revenue-wise, right? So predictable sales growth. And we traditionally work with companies that have sales teams and are looking to grow, but predictably, right? So we're very heavy into math and metrics-based type selling. And yes, folks, I did say math, blah, right? I don't like math, but the reality is that when you measure things and you're mathematically doing them, math there's not a lot of error in the math, right? So when we hold accountability to the metrics and the math, then we can dial in. If somebody wants to say, hey, I want to grow by 28% this year, or somebody says I want to grow by 112% or whatever, we can dial it in and say, okay, here's what the plan is, and this is what we're going to follow.
Yeah. And so what is some of that data then? As you're figuring out different kinds of numbers to track and measure, like what are some of those things?
Yeah, it's a great question. It depends on the company because different KPIs for different industries. But if we're just talking about taking sales teams, for example, sales teams are pretty easy. We're going to track the number of outbounds that they're doing. So if they have inbound leads coming, the people that they're inbounding will be counted as an outbound when they connect with them. So we're gonna measure the outbounds to the connection rate to the response rates, and what are the positive responses, neutral, negative responses. We're gonna measure those because that tells us a story. So how many responses go to appointments, how many appointments go to second appointments if need be, how many appointments are closing, how many presentations might be within those the context of those appointments to closes. And then, how many follow-up closes are we doing? How many transactional value increases are we doing, i.e. cross-selling, upselling? Are we extending the buying frequency in that relationship? A lot of people don't even think about the next sale and the next sale. So we're going to measure all those. And we're going to also measure, are we spawning any new clients out of that, i.e. referrals and other methodologies from that. Those are the basic. There's about, 8 to 11 metrics we can measure on a sales team. And we just follow the numbers, and then that starts to tell us the story, Vince. And then once we start to look in at the story, we either find places we can optimize, we can find places that are just not working, or we can find things that are just working amazingly working, and then we double down on those, right? So a combination of those three factors are what boost revenue.
And so I want to get into mindset, right? Like, what is the mindset to approach all of this? How do you want somebody to just get started with, I'm looking to grow the revenue. How should I begin? What does that look like?
Yeah, buy a boat, buy a pony, go out to sea and sit there, right? That's because if you're going to do this, you're crazy. Don't do that, right? No, but the answer to your question, the mindset of this is step one is we've got to get a truthful goal. That is the biggest challenge that I run into with companies or people who want to grow because they're subjective about it. It's like, well, I'd like to double my company. Let's say I want to double sales. Like you mentioned, I grew products at 4,152% or whatever it was, right? I did that on my own within a company. But, if I went to an owner and said, what do you want? And they go, I want to double sales. And then we lay out a plan to double sales. They'll look back at that plan and go, oh no, too much work. Right. It's like, well, hello, what? This is, you said you wanted to double sales, right? So the first step in the mindset is like, we have to get super clear and super truthful about what we want. Like, we want to grow by a minimum of 14%, let's say, or whatever. Because what I've learned over time is most people don't really want to double their sales. They want to grow with sanity. And so what is that sanity number? Where are we going to go at the end? If we started in January, we ended, in the end of December, and we got there and we were popping champagne bottle, open, and we said, hey, we hit this number. What is that truthful number? Once we get from there, then the question is, all right, are we willing to do what's needed to get done? And if the answer is yes, it's super easy. But the mindset that somebody's got to approach this with, Vince, is they've got to realize that it's going to be a little messy in the beginning and that we're going to sometimes have to even step back to step forward. And that's a hard part for people. I'm not talking about declining their revenue. I'm talking about change, So it's one of the first things I teach salespeople. If you have money, time, and change, talk about change first. Because if they won't change, the money and time really isn't going to be a big issue. Right. But if they won't change, that is a huge issue. Like if it's like, look, and the only way to accomplish this is we've got to look at a different market sector. And they're like, no, we've been in this market sector for 11 years and we're never going to change this. It's like you're declining revenue at 13% a year for the last 4 years. Yeah, but we'll turn it around. Right. It's like, no, sorry, Cleveland Browns fan, you're not turning it around in the next year or two. Right. So or the New England Patriots now, right? So it's like we gotta get really truthful about what the reality is. That's the hardest part, Vince. And then some people just stop their growth because of their childhood wounds.
Oof, man, that's deep, and I feel like we can cover a lot of ground there. But before we go too far into it, Doug, let's talk about this change aspect, right? Because
Sure.
Sales, if you're going to go in from a marketing side and say, hey, we're going to try this new marketing strategy, whatever it might be, like to get people to accept the change is a hard thing to do. I mean, how do you even begin to crack that nut of like, hey, you don't want to do this, but this is what you need?
Yeah. So every sale comes down to three factors and two criteria based on. So people are always evaluating. I want to solve a problem, gain a goal, or gain an opportunity. Those are the three major factors that they look at. So when I'm talking to somebody, what are they trying to get? Right. Number one, because if I'm talking, you got problem, and they're like, no, I want goal. Like that's like. That's like me and my ex-wife trying to work it out, right? But so we've got to identify what they want. How do we do that? We ask questions, we listen. Once we identify that, please understand, folks, that people buy on two criteria: business return on investment, personal return on investment. And what they buy on is the value perception that means something to them on those two criteria. Not to us, to them. Right?
Yeah.
Too many people telling, not asking questions and figuring it out. So, and I'll be analogous to this is not being sexist. This is just reality, right? So my wife will come to me and she's I don't know, had a rough day with, I don't know, the kids, or she's had a rough day, or not even a rough day. She talked to a few of her friends and friends didn't agree, and she'll come, and talk to me, and she'll start talking to me about, oh, Marlene did this and da 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 da. And then I'm thinking in my head, well, it's easy. Just tell Marlene, XYZ, right?
Yeah.
Solves the problem. Next, right? That's a guy thought, right? But what she's looking to do is to gain an opportunity to be heard. I know she has a problem with Marlene. I know she has a goal to get to the thing. But if I go to the goal or I go to the problem, I break rapport, and her value perception of that conversation is just deflated, and I'm done. So we want to discover that in any business situation, there's always a business return on investment. I want to gain this, that, whatever. And then there's a personal return on investment. I want higher repute. I want less stress. I don't want to be fired by the board, whatever. Then we look at the value perception of that, Vince. So when we're trying to persuade somebody, we've got to look at what that value perception is for them. We have to lower the fear and increase the confidence in that point. That's how you adjust. That's how I do it anyways.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, to think about it from this mindset of, okay, I have some emotional thing that I'm afraid of, I'm looking to protect, and that's how they're going into it. So, hey, we need to double our sales because me emotionally, I need this other thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, yeah. So to be able to be like, okay, what's behind the shield? Why did you pick this shield? Like, did you really care about that so much, or is it you think that's the best way to solve this thing that you're scared about on a personal level? And so, like, how do we redirect that energy? So I am actually solving your problem, having this expertise in your field, right? Like,
correct. But see, the thing is if we say it's true, Vince, in a receiver's mind, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if they say it's true, it absolutely is true, right? So this is where people get in trouble all the time in sales conversations, because somebody will throw an objection and they're trying to crush it or overcome it, or prove them wrong, so to speak, right? And all that does most of the time is it drives more resistance into the conversation. And if anybody's like, well, geez, that sounds kind of interesting. You ever been in a disagreement or an argument with somebody, and then it goes so long, you're like, what the hell are we arguing about? You don't even remember anymore, right? And so that's because we were using the limbic side of our brain, flight, fight, freeze, right? We've got to be so certain on that we're not opening up the creative side or the prefrontal cortex side of the brain to allow reasoning to come in. And so when we're so super sure, the earth will never move below my feet. Oh yeah, go to California and see what happens every once in a while, right? That's when your creativity starts opening up, if you're that fixed, because it's like, all right, we got new proof. But you know as well as I do, Vince, some people just keep going down that path no matter what. It's like the ground's cracking and they're just like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Right?
Yeah, because like you're saying with change, it's scarier to admit that, okay, this is not working anymore. Something's changed. And so now we have to make changes, and you're going to have to, start learning something new and making experiments as a business and whatever. Like, those adjustments are terrifying because it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of work. It's the unknown. And you had a good thing before. Like, it's just hard to move on.
Yeah. When I worked in the hospitals, I saw this all the time. Somebody might have like brain health problems, or they might have, this is the epitome. I worked in nuclear medicine and somebody came in one time in the middle of the night. Didn't like them because it was 3:30 in the morning. I had to get up and come into the hospital, but they couldn't breathe very well. And so we did what we call the lung scan. And long story short, we scanned the lungs, and I see there's 3 blood clots in the lungs. And the only way to scan that is people have got to put their arms above their head. So they got to hold it up above their head. So it's, it's a little uncomfortable, being in that position for like 30 minutes. During the middle of that, this guy goes to me, goes, hey, dude, can we stop this? I said, you cramping, you're uncomfortable. He goes, no. I want to go outside and have a cigarette. And I'm like, you got 3 blood clots, and I'm like, dude, if you walk out of this door, I'm going to just hand you a shovel. You might as well start digging, right? That's kind of the conversation. So, but this is the level of certainty that people get to the crazy epitome of that, and so our job in persuading someone is to move them from fear state to neutral state first. This is where people make the mistake. They try to move them from fear to buying confidence immediately. And it's just a really rough swing. And most people feel more fear, so they dig in more on the fear side. So if we can move them from there to, Buddhist teachings of enlightenment, or, it's like, oh, that's interesting. We get them to neutral, then they're open to the teaching that will come forth. And that's how we persuade people along the path.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Yeah. So, okay, because a lot of this has been about relationship building, right? So it's how do you get this good rapport and how do you get into that right mindset to diagnose what the problem actually is versus what's presented as the problem or what's presented as the goal, and then go from there. So like thinking about that and getting to that kind of space is great. And what I think is fascinating about you, Doug, is like you have all this experience, you have all this knowledge, you're doing all this work in sales, and to know what those results can be and all the different ways that you can market, you've chosen a video podcast. And I mean, how much is like relationship wise, what has that done for you to have a show like that?
Well, I mean, it's opened up tons of opportunities. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I've had people on my video podcast that have done amazing things, right? Because they just have. I mean, I have the founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK on my podcast. I mean, Brian Scudamore, what a nice guy, right? So we still have a relationship from that, right? I mean, I wouldn't say we're best buddies, and I could call him up, and stop by his house without asking. But I'm having lunch next week with the founder of Deloitte. Right. So
yeah.
I've met investors. I've met, just in all kinds of super smart people that I've been able to help other people with the relationships, et cetera. The one thing that having exposure in general, Vince, most people, and they don't think like this, people who are selling, even if they're individual sellers, they really need to be in the public square. The more they're in the public square, the more they will sell, because people look you up, folks. No matter who you are, they look you up. There's all kinds of ways to find information on people today. And so, having this podcast, I've had friends of mine, Vince, that I didn't even know listen to the podcast. Go, dude, I love your podcast. I'm like, you listen to my podcast? Like, and some of these people are people that I years ago viewed up here. Like they were the guys and gals I aspired to emulate. And they're like, yeah, I love your podcast. You got great content, So it builds credibility, and credibility equals trust, good or bad, right? I mean, we see this in the political environment right now, good or bad, right? And we always sell you into the political environment, but we always, but you see it in anything, brand awareness, creation. If you're not out there, you're not. Like if I come in and some unknown person comes in for the same potential position in that company, and they can find me everywhere, but they can't find this person at all, I already have a distinct competitive advantage. That's what the podcast does for me, and brings me to great relationships like we're building.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. I've been living in podcasting. I've been around it and connected to shows and working on shows and hosting shows in different capacities for 15 years now. So I've been living it for quite some time. And it is really incredible, the kinds of people you get to meet, the information that you learn, the relationships that you build, the long-term value of that content, how sometimes people can see something you did 8 months before, and they're like, hey, this was brilliant. I need to talk to you. I mean, I literally had a post it was a LinkedIn post, and I was talking about how I had radio experience, and then I transitioned into podcasting and doing a lot of work there. And a guy who I'd never met, did not have connections to, but was running a radio station in Australia, reached out to me because he saw that post and was like, hey, I have a problem with our podcast and like we can't get this right, but you know radio and podcasting, can we talk? And it's like, wow, the power of that is so incredible. And what I love about it too is from the idea of being an executive, right? So like if you're a CMO and you're the face of these things, or if you're trying to get your executive to get in the front of it and sharpen their message, I mean, how much easier it gets to say, okay, well, I'm going to do all these shows, I'm going to have all these conversations. You have to have opinions. And to be able to like develop these really sharp, specific opinions about what you do and showcase that expertise and do it time and time again, like your ability in terms of thought leadership, day-to-day communication, sales, like anything that you need to do just becomes so much clearer because you're doing the show all the time and just like living what you do.
And you learn a lot from doing these things, right? So you get better and better and better yourself. So I agree 1,000% plus with what you're saying. And I'm forever telling people the same thing. Like, Vince, you were a sportscaster, if I remember correctly, or sports radio, right?
Yep.
I mean, how impressive is that? Like, I mean, like to me, I look at, like I was a mobile DJ. I was a professional mobile DJ. I was a musician, professional musician. And when I hear sportscaster, I'm like, I'm so intrigued. And part of the reason that I'm intrigued, and here's the point I'm trying to make, folks, you never know where this comes from. My grandfather actually used to be up in the booth of the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Celtics and the Boston Bruins. Yeah. He worked for Western Union. He was up in the sports booth, right? So that's a huge connection for me, because when I'm thinking of Vince now, I'm thinking, wow, I got this weird connection with my grandfather and Vince at the same time, but subconsciously we don't really understand that unless it's happening. And so it will naturally draw me closer to you as a person, Vince. And here's the thing, you brought up something earlier, we're talking about relationships, et cetera, et cetera. I have rarely encountered a business problem that didn't involve a person. And that person, usually it was a relationship issue within the business. And so relationships are the business, because we're not selling to CFOs, CMOs, CEOs, whatever. Those are titles. We're selling to people. And, I can only imagine as a sports person, you probably ran into some situations where, I don't know, the quarterback wasn't really performing anymore, or he left the left the New England Patriots and he went to, Tampa Bay, and he still won the Super Bowl, and all the people in Boston are very upset with this whole guy, right? And all this stuff, right? There's all of this human dynamic that goes on, and that's selling. And so being out in that public square, being out, having a video podcast, if people don't have something like this, they're going to be in worse trouble down the line than they are right now, because everything is still sliding that way. I mean, I cannot believe, I walk through sometimes the airports, and kids will go up to social media or influencers, and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. They're talking about hairstyles or something. I mean, what do I need to know with hairstyles? I've back when I was 20, maybe I did, but not now. So, folks, if you don't see me, I have no hair. So
you look great, though. It looks great. Thank
you. I think I carry it well.
Yeah.
Thanks to my dad. But that social credibility is what all celebrities live off of.
Yeah.
Some people may send you hate mail for this, but I'm going to say that there are some singers out there, even today, who can't sing very well.
Yeah.
But they're still at the top of the game. When I was growing up, we used to go, why is Joe Cocker actually a singer? Right? Because he's screaming all the time, right? He's like, he can't, and it was kind of a joke running around, right? But the thing is that he was Joe Cocker, movie contracts, all these other things, right? So what I want people to catch out of this, if I could convey that message, is exactly what I think you're trying to ask the question for, Vince, is if if we don't self-promote, we could be the best singer in the choir, but if we don't let our voice be heard getting out there, we're never, ever going to get first chair. We're never going to be in the opera. We're never, you know what I mean? We won't get there. Or if we do, it's going to take us way longer than if we are promoted in the process. Just the fact that I'm on your podcast, people are actually probably thinking, man, you know what? This guy's got some street cred because Vince has street cred with me. And that's the beauty about, getting the transference of the relationship from one point to another.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And honestly, Doug, I could talk to you for hours, but I feel like that's such a great point that we'll just end it there. I mean, that was phenomenal stuff. So I've really appreciated everything today, just to cover all of this ground and get into mentality and how it applies to the relationship building, selling, content, everything I could have asked for. So really enjoyed it. And for everybody who wants to keep up with you, where can they follow you, Doug?
Well, they can certainly follow me. If they just type in Doug C. Brown revenue growth, I'll be pretty much everywhere. But if they, and we made a conscious effort to make it that way, right? So Doug Brown 123 is my LinkedIn, and they can send me an email at doug@CEO Sales Strategies, plural, both of them, .com, or just my cell phone, 832-549-4836.
There
Please
you go.
don't spam text me. That's the only thing I ask.
Just tell him if you think Joe Cocker can sing, you can text him and yell at him that Joe Cocker's a good singer. So you're allowed to do
I'll
that.
know where you came from.
That's totally fair. Yeah. Tell him Vince sent you. But
maybe Joe Cocker's listening, our family members are listening to this podcast, and I'm going to get some, how dare you? That would be funny.
There we go. Yeah, we lost the Cocker diehards. So be it. I tried. Can't please everybody. But yeah, Doug, this has been great. Thanks again for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation, and let's stay in touch.
Yes, love to, Vince. Thanks for having me on here. Very grateful.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.